Good evening, everyone. So today I'll be explaining about coordinate geometry. I had been thinking of explaining you about coordinate geometry. So what we have to know in coordinate geometry is we have to know about ordered pair. So this topic is there in class 9 cbse and class 10 ordered pair. So what is ordered pair? When we have two numbers, just take any number. When we keep two numbers inside parenthesis separated by a comma, so this is called ordered pair. When we keep any two numbers, either positive or negative, inside the first bracket separated by a comma is called ordered pair. So this is ordered pair. Now, why do we use this ordered pair in coordinate geometry is, so let's see first. Suppose I want to know the position of a point in a plane. Let's say I want to know the position of this point A on this plane, on this whiteboard. So what we have to do first is we have to draw an imaginary x-axis. This is our x-axis, x dash, and we have to draw an imaginary y-axis. So this will be y dash. So now as we have learned in our number line, we will mark numbers here. It will be 0, 1, 2, 3 at equal intervals, 4, 5. It keeps on going. On the left side also it's the same distance, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. It keeps on going. Same follows on the upward. 1, the spacing should be same, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same way, minus 1 in the below y-axis, minus 3, minus 4. So as I was saying, to know the position of this point, what we have to do is we have to drop a perpendicular from this point A onto the x-axis first. So we have to drop a perpendicular from this point onto the x-axis. Wherever it goes and touch the x-axis, that will be my x coordinate 2. And from this point we have to drop a perpendicular on the y-axis. Wherever it goes and touch the y-axis will be our y coordinate, which is 6. So 2 comma 6 will be the position of this point. So this horizontal line is called the x axis, and this vertical line is called the y axis. So we have to know that this horizontal line is called the x-axis, and this vertical line is called the y-axis, and the intersection of these two lines at this point is called the origin. So as I said, coordinate geometry will help us to find the position of a point. So supposing again in the same way, if I want to know the position of this point, let's say here point B, then we'll follow the same thing. We'll drop a perpendicular from this point B to the x-axis. Wherever it goes and touch will be our x coordinate, that will be 4. Wherever it goes and touch the y-axis will be our y coordinates. So the position of this point will be 4 comma 1. So first we need to know what is coordinates. Coordinates means it is the position of a point in a plane, and when we write numbers in this way, where two numbers are placed one after another separated by a comma inside the parentheses, are called ordered pair. So this is the basic of coordinate geometry, we can say that. So not only this position we can know the position even this side. Like let's say if I want to know the position over here, position of a point over here, then I'll simply write, let's say, point C. Supposing this point, suppose I want to know the position of this point, like I just want to know where is this point. So what will I do? I'll drop a perpendicular from this point to the x-axis. So wherever it goes and touch the x-axis will be my x coordinate, and wherever it goes and touch my y-axis will be my y coordinate. So the coordinates of this point is called minus 3, minus 3. So we can find the coordinates of any point here in this xy plane or Cartesian plane. This is called Cartesian plane. So let's learn it in a better way now. Let me rub this one and then I'll show it in another way. So to understand coordinate geometry, we need to first know that every point will come with an ordered pair, and every point will have different ordered pairs. No two points will have same ordered pair. So let's say, let me draw one more time the xy plane. So this is our y-axis, the vertical line, and this is our x-axis. X x dash, the negative side, left hand side will be the x dash, the positive side will be the y, and here the vertical line, the upward one will be the y positive axis and downward will be the negative y axis. So this part of the plane, this whole part of the plane is called the first quadrant. This whole thing from here till here, this part is called the first quadrant. From here till here will be called the second quadrant. From here till here will call the third quadrant. And this part of the plane will be name given as fourth quadrant. So this part is called the first quadrant, this one is second, this one is third, and this one is the fourth quadrant. Now what is the importance of this quadrants is, see here once. Okay, so as I had said, this horizontal line is called the x-axis, and obviously there will be numbers at equal distances. It is not necessary that only 1, 2, 3 this integers will be there. There are so many numbers on this number line, but we are considering integers for our example. 1, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5. Same way 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. Okay, so as I've already learned that this part is called the first quadrant. Now what is the importance of this first quadrant is, you see here any point over here on this part of the plane. Let's take this point. So we learned that to tell the position of this point, I can give a name to this point, A, B, C, anything like that. Now that point, how will I know the coordinates? I will drop a perpendicular from this point to the x-axis. So wherever it goes and touch the x-axis will be my x coordinate, and wherever it goes and touch the y-axis will be my y coordinate. This line you can draw for your understanding, or otherwise without drawing also you can write the coordinates. You can write point A. Same way, let's say this point here, point B. So if I want to know the position of this point, Then I have to drop a perpendicular from this point onto the x-axis, and it will go and touch 5 on the x-axis. So wherever it goes and touch that number, we have to write here. So our x coordinate is 5, and from here wherever it goes and touch a perpendicular line, wherever it goes and touch the y-axis will be my y coordinate. So what we have observed here is any point you take here, the coordinates matlab, means the number inside the bracket will always be positive. Positive, I hope you must have observed that. You take any number here, over here, the coordinates or the ordered pair will always be positive. Positive, same thing if you see here on the second quadrant. If you see in the second quadrant, let's take this point over here and let's name this point as C. If you observe here, what happens is same thing you follow. Drop a perpendicular from this point onto the x-axis and name that point -2, and drop a perpendicular from this point to the y-axis, name the point 3, wherever it goes and touch. So the coordinates of that point is -2, 3. Same way you take this point, let's say point D. Again, same thing you do, drop a perpendicular from this point to the x-axis. So always you have to drop a perpendicular from that point to the x-axis, and then from that point only drop a perpendicular to the y-axis. So if you have noticed, any point here on the second quadrant will always have ordered pair negative, comma, positive. Means the ordered pair here will always be in this form, minus plus. And if you see the third quadrant, take any point here, let's name that point as E. Take any point here and let's name this, because every point you can name any alphabets to them. So let's name this point as E, and if I want to know the position of this point E, I will drop a perpendicular from this point onto the x-axis, and so wherever it goes and touch the x-axis, that will be my x coordinate. So -1 will come first, and then wherever it goes and touch the y-axis, my y coordinate will come. So it's -1 comma -3. Same way, let's say if we take this point F, and if I want to know the coordinates of this point, I will drop a perpendicular from this point to the x-axis first, which is -4, and from here I'll drop a perpendicular to the y-axis, which is -1. So from here we learn that any point here on the third quadrant will always be negative, negative. And lastly, or finally, we come to our fourth quadrant. And if you notice here, any point over here, let's take this point. Let's name this point as G. And if I want to know the position of this point, so what I have to do is I have to drop a perpendicular from this point onto the x-axis, which is 4, and drop a perpendicular onto the y-axis, which is -2. Let's take one more point. Let's take this point H. Again, I'll drop a perpendicular from this point onto the x-axis. This perpendicular line, it's up to you. If you want to draw, you draw it, or without drawing also you can just see and then you can find out. So it is 2. So wherever it goes and touch the x-axis, that will be our x coordinate, and wherever it goes and touch our y-axis, it will be our y coordinate. So from here we learn that fourth coordinates, matlab in the fourth quadrant, the ordered pair or the coordinates will always be in this form, positive, negative. So that is the first thing that we have to know from this topic. First is, what is ordered pair? Ordered pair means when we write two numbers, any number, it can be positive, negative, fractional numbers, any number, real number, integer, whole number, any number, if you write in this form, inside the bracket separated by a comma, this is called ordered pair. But that same ordered pair is called coordinates in coordinate geometry, because this ordered pair is telling us the position of a point. So that's why that this ordered pair is called coordinates here in this coordinate geometry. So that is what we have to know first from this topic. And So we learned that what kind of ordered pairs we will get on the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. Let's see one last point from here, and that is, suppose a point is exactly on the x-axis, then what kind of ordered pair it will have. So let's say if there is a point which is exactly on the x-axis here, suppose, let's say on the x-axis, and you can give again any name to this point, let's say z. So I want to know the position of this point. What is the position of this point? So we've learned that every point comes with ordered pair like this in coordinate geometry. So, and we have also learned that from that point we have to drop a perpendicular onto the x-axis first, but the point is exactly on the x-axis, hence the x coordinate will be 5. And then we have learned that from that same point we have to drop a perpendicular onto the y-axis. So when I drop the perpendicular onto the y-axis, it is coming and touching 0. So hence the point here on the x-axis is 5 comma 0. Let's take another point here on the x-axis, and let's name this point as a. So again, the point is exactly on the x-axis, and we have learned that from the point we have to drop a perpendicular line to the x-axis. But since the point is exactly on the x-axis, that's why the x coordinate will be minus 3, and from that same point we have to drop a perpendicular onto the y-axis. It is coming and touching at 0, hence the coordinate of this point is minus 3 comma 0. So from here we can conclude that any point any point on x-axis, any point on x-axis means anywhere on this x-axis has coordinates or has ordered pair in the form of x comma 0. Here x represents any number, any integer. X represents any integer. X can be any number, minus 3, minus 4, wherever the point is lying. Same way if we follow for y-axis, let's take this point. So let's give a name to this point b, and as we have learned, from this point I'll drop a perpendicular onto the x-axis first. So it is going and touching at 0. So 0, and we have to drop a perpendicular to the y-axis, but the point is exactly on the y-axis, hence it will be 0 comma 4. Same way, let's take this point c, and the rule says we drop a perpendicular onto the x-axis first. So when we drop a perpendicular onto the x-axis, it is coming and touching at 0. So 0, and we have to drop a perpendicular onto the y-axis, but it is exactly on y-axis, hence the coordinate of that point is 0 comma minus 2. So from here again we learn that any point on y-axis has coordinates 0 comma y. Here y represents any number or any integer, because wherever the point is lying, that will be the number here. If it is the point is lying on 5, it will be 0 comma 5. If the point is lying on 2, it will be 0 comma 2. So these are very important points that we have to remember. So this topic is quite huge. So this was just the introduction of coordinate geometry. I will come up with another video where I'll be explaining more about coordinate geometry. So you can go through these points which I have discussed as of now. And if you have any queries or doubts, you can text, or you can comment or give any suggestions. Thank you.